Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 modding video. Today, specifically, we are talking about my mods. Today is the last update that I'll be giving out on the Frommer stop before its final release, and I also have a few notes to talk about in regards to the attachment pack, the long-awaited mod that I know many of you have been asking about. I finally have some information that I want to give. We've kind of talked about it a little bit before, but there's more that'll be in this video towards the end. But first, let's talk about the Frommer. The Frommer is really close to completion. As a matter of fact, I'm really hoping to have this out by the 1st of next month. So hopefully we will have another first release as is usual for me. The Frommer's super close. I only have a handful of attachments, leveled list integration, and a couple of CK fixes, balancing, some renames, stuff like that. And it's pretty much done. I am considering throwing in some custom animations, but I'm on the fence about that. I wouldn't be making any from scratch, but rather just importing some from another author, with their permission, of course. But as of right now, the Frommer's in a pretty cool working state. So I wanted to show off what I have so far, just so that you guys can see what I've been spending my time working on. I haven't been working on this as efficiently as I'd like to be, but I do have a lot of really cool stuff that I'm quite proud of. Now, I'm not going to show absolutely everything in this video, as some of it I want to keep as a surprise for the final release, but I will show everything that I have thus far, and I think a lot of it is pretty neat. So with that, let's go ahead and check this thing out in game. So here is the Frommer in game. Now, I'm really here just to show off the model a little bit. Pay no attention to the stats, because those are all going to change by the time I get to the final release. Right now, it's just using the base vanilla deliverer stats, and so that's not at all what it's going to look like when it actually comes out. Although it will be using 38s, as there actually is a Frommer that's chambered in 380, and that's the closest comparison we have in vanilla Fallout 4. Now then, in terms of the model, I'm actually quite happy with this one. This is my first time really trying to recreate a real-life weapon, and I think I did a decent job. There are obviously going to be some imperfections here and there, but I'm quite happy with how the model came out overall. This is going to use those vanilla deliver animations, but like I said, I am slightly considering throwing in some custom ones if they fit better. I'm still on the fence about that, but we'll just have to wait and see. But the real things that I want to show off are definitely going to be over at the weapons workbench, as I've made a whole lot of attachments for this weapon that are all ready to be shown off. As we can see, we have a handful of different variations here with extended barrels, scopes, bigger magazines, different finishes you can put on the weapon like gold, as well as a couple of different paint jobs for various factions in the game, and some new scopes and attachments that I'm really happy with. Now, a lot of the stuff that's going to be featured in this mod will actually be available in the attachment pack. I'll specify a little bit more later, but this weapons platform was a bit of a test for me to start making stuff for the attachment pack. So you will get to see some of that and play with some of that very soon. Now then, let's take a basic version of the Frommer and show what's available right now. I don't have any receivers as of yet, because it's usually one of the last things I do. It's just going to be some damage and stat tweaks, nothing to do with the mesh, so I haven't really added any of that yet. That'll be done really easily though. In terms of barrels, I've shown these off in streams, but not everybody watches the stream, so I'll go through it really quick. We do have a long extended barrel and an extremely long, very extended barrel, which is just absurd looking, but looks really cool. This is based off of some real-world pictures of different barrel extensions I've seen for the Frommer, and I really like this one, so I wanted to include it in the mod. We also have a couple of different grip changes, like wood or polymer, depending on which you prefer. There are different magazines, of course, with your standards, quick ejects and whatnot, extendeds, and of course the really extended mag, which will give you a huge magazine capacity. We have a ton of sight options. Now, this is what I was talking about in regards to the attachment pack. My goal for the attachment pack has changed a lot over time, and that's why it's taken so long, and I'm also restarting the mod. But a lot of the stuff here is stuff that you will see in the attachment pack and some of its expansions. So I wanted to include every reflex sight available in the vanilla game, rather than just picking one and having people be upset. Like if I had just chosen this one that's available on the combat rifle, somebody might say, well, I really wanted the one that's on the 10mm or the one that's on the 44. Well, this is going to let you pick all of them. Additionally, I added my own scope that's going to be added into the attachment pack as well, that I'm calling the Combat Optic. This is actually a tweaked version of the handmade rifle scope that has been trimmed down. I removed a lot of the bloat and made it into a nice little combat scope, and this will be featured in one of the attachment packs. Additionally, I did add in my laser sight that you may have seen in a couple of my other mods. I really like this thing. It has that cool improvised side aim, and I'm just really happy with it, and I think it's really neat on a pistol. Then, of course, you do have a regular scope for this weapon, as well as a night vision scope. Now, ignore the giant pink blob. This is one of the last things I have to texture. Most of the models are all done. This is just one of the last things, and I haven't quite gotten to it yet. But the night vision scope will have its own separate model, and I do plan to include the finished version of this in some of my attachment packs as well. And then finally, we have the Recon Scope, which has its own model as well. And this one, I wanted to try something unique, so I did a little nif bash out of some different scopes in the vanilla game to make something sort of akin to a Star Wars scope, where it's side-mounted and has a really interesting little get up here. It kind of reminds me of the DL44, but just completely different. So I like this a lot. This one was really cool, and I think it makes sense in a Fallout fashion. You would never see this on a real Frommer, but in Fallout, I think this makes perfect sense. Now, for muzzles, I don't have anything yet. That is one of the last steps as well. Along with making those last couple textures and a couple of things in the CK, the muzzles are the last set of attachments that I need to implement the models. They're all already made, but I just have to actually put them in the game. If you watched any of my streams, which are available on YouTube right now, you can see what those look like already. And then finally, we have a ton of skins that you can throw on this thing, which all range from different types of metals to different faction skins, and a couple of secret ones that I'm not going to show just yet. I'm going to save that for the final release. But for standard, we have the steel. We also have a blued steel, which will change the coloration slightly. We have nickel plating and gold plating, and additionally a couple of faction skins like the Minutemen faction paint, the Railroad faction paint, and the Gunner faction paint. I specifically only gave it to these three factions, as they are the only ones who actually use ballistic firearms and might actually employ this weapon in their use. I don't see the Brotherhood of Steel or the Institute or the Enclave ever using a Frommer stop. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I left it to these to be a bit more lore friendly, and I hope to implement these skins into the leveled list. So if you find a Frommer on a Gunner, he'll have the Gunner skin, and the same goes for the Minutemen, Railroad, etc. So yeah, the Frommer is coming along nicely. It feels weird doing a small little standard ballistic weapon like a pistol after doing such crazy mods like the Pulse Carbine Skewer and the SMMG, but it is nice. It's cool to change things up and test my skills in different ways. I'm not happy with every single aspect of the Frommer, but I think it's been a fun learning experience. But what I'm sure a lot of you guys are here for is to talk about that attachment pack. Now, this is going to be more of a discussion. I don't have a ton to show off because if you've seen my roadmap, this is going to be the next mod that I'm going to spend all of my focus on after the Frommer is complete, which should be here in the next week or so. So after this, I'm going full hog on the attachment pack. Now, the attachment pack has caused me a lot of grief ever since I came up with the idea. I never knew quite exactly how I wanted to do it. I've learned how to do so much more since I started it, because the attachment pack is one of the first things I started working on when I started learning how to mod, and it's just changed so much. So I've actually divided the attachment pack into multiple mods and multiple projects. The reason being, I didn't want it to have too much bloat and be this huge file size full of a bunch of stuff that some people probably wouldn't even want. So here's how it's going to work. The attachment pack that is going to come out first, the one that I'll be working on right after the Frommer, is going to be a standard attachment pack. This is going to apply to all of the vanilla weapons and all of the DLC weapons, and it's going to add new attachments to each of them to make them feel unique and give them some more utility that separates them from other weapons in the game. Things that will make the combat rifle feel different from the combat shotgun, and things that will make lesser weapons like the pipe rifles and the SMGs a little bit more usable. Now, these are going to range from all kinds of attachments, be it optics, stocks, muzzle devices, etc. But on top of that, I wanted to have a bunch of scopes, and I couldn't decide what style of scopes to go for. I know I wanted to add all of the vanilla scopes to every single weapon so you could choose your favorite, and I also wanted to make some of my own scopes, and I wanted to have some modern ones and some junk parts and all kinds of stuff, and all of a sudden, this mod project became way too big. Every menu would be so cluttered and so full of bloat that this mod would just be kind of insane. So my plan is to separate it into multiple projects. There's the standard attachment pack, which will contain all of the attachments for the vanilla weapons. And then I'm going to have optic packs. There will be a vanilla optic pack, which is going to throw on all of those vanilla reflex sights onto every weapon. Just a small little mod that you can use independently from the attachment pack if you want it. And then I will also have a modern optic pack for those of you who like the tactical modernish style scopes. I will have a pack just for that, so that people who prefer the lore-friendly stuff don't have to use it. And in that tactical pack, there will be a handful of tactical reflex sights, ACOG scopes, and different stuff like that, so that you can throw those onto the vanilla weapons to bring your vanilla weapons up to par with all the modern weapons you have installed. Additionally, I intend to do a lore-friendly optic pack, which will have some of my own scope creations, which will all be kind of crazy and wacky and hopefully in the style of Fallout. And then finally, I have an entirely separate attachment pack that will be strictly focused on makeshift parts. Parts that are made completely from scrap and junk that you would see on raiders and settlers, where they took a broken firearm and tried to make it work the best they could using the scrap they had around them. I thought about just including this in the standard attachment pack, but I wanted to keep everything separate. That way people could choose all of the packs they want. And theoretically, you could use all of these together. And I may make an all-in-one pack at some point in the future, but at the very least, you'll be able to pick and choose the ones you want. And if you want all of them, you can use all of them. I'm trying to make this as best for the user as it can be, and segmenting it like this will make it so that the mod won't take 3 years to come out. I can work on each piece individually and then release them as they're ready. So hopefully that will make my workflow a whole lot better. I'm also going to look into getting help from other talented mod authors like Pig and a handful of other community members so that we can hopefully get this thing done a whole lot quicker. With that though, I hope you guys enjoyed this little update. I know it was a lot of talking and not a whole lot of showing, but I just wanted to let you know what is going on behind the scenes, since I'm sure a lot of you are invested in the stuff that I'm working on, which I appreciate a whole lot. Your continued support makes this so worth it, and I really appreciate every single bit that you guys do to contribute and support my channel. Speaking of which, big shout out to all of my patrons. You guys are awesome for supporting work like this. If you want to check out the Patreon, it is linked down in the description below, but it is completely optional. Additionally, a big special shout out to Youth RC, Captain Chaos, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noid, and Helljumper 2077 for signing up for that tier 3 membership. It's completely unnecessary, but I really appreciate it. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, don't forget to drop a rating, subscribe if you haven't already for more videos just like this and other Fallout modding content, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Peace!